Welcome to Justice Talk to Justice Walk. Just want to go through some quick Zoom rules. So I'm sure we all know in this virtual world that when we join a Zoom meeting, it's important for us to just mute ourselves just to make sure that we are not a distraction to others. In addition to that, we welcome you to put on your cameras if you're comfortable so we can see your beautiful and lovely faces. And then last but not least, there's a reactions button at the bottom. So we definitely encourage you to engage that way. So if you want to, go ahead and clap for an individual or celebrate them, you can do so, and we welcome you to do so as well. So at this time, I am going to actually throw it over to my I'm going to call her my colleague, but she's also my student worker, and I'm just super proud to have her here. Ms. Genesis Oliveras, who's also a John Jay student here, and she's going to intro our guest for us. Genesis, go ahead and take it away for us.
Hi, everyone. So today I have the honor to introduce both Professor Alexa Capeloto and John Jay student Fatima Moien today at today's Justice Talk. Professor Cap is an associate professor who teaches journalism and co-coordinates the college's digital media and journalism minor. She is also a faculty advisor for the student newspaper, the John Jay Sentinel, right? Okay, I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous right now, but she earned her master's degree in journalism from Columbia University in 2000 and has worked as a reporter and editor at the Glendale News Press, the Detroit Free Press, and the San Diego Union Tribune, eventually serving as the Union Tribune's enterprise editor. Since joining the John Jay faculty in 2009, she has published several legal and scholarly and journalistic articles related to freedom of information law, paying particular attention in the intersection of privatization and public rights to know. As for Fatima Moien, she is a senior majoring in criminal justice with a minor in digital media and journalism. She is currently the editor-in-chief of the John Jay Sentinel and a proud alumni of the Adelante Latinx leadership program. So with further ado, please help me give President Cap and Fatima a warm welcome.
Professor Cap, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, I'm loving everybody that's here. This is so insane. I mean, we never really imagined such a great turnout, but thank you all for being here. I'm just going to share my screen and jump right into it. Welcome all. This is our event POV. You're a journalist and you just didn't know it yet. So we hope, this event kind of just explores into exactly why you're here. Hopefully that's around journalism. Hopefully that's around being a student journalist. So I just want to also introduce the other Sentinel editors that are here with me. We have James Von Bramer, our managing editor. We have Sivia Warrenker, our web editor, and Nina Megna, who is our treasurer. So just know that the whole Sentinel team is here and we're here to welcome everybody and get you into the journalism world. So let's get into our icebreaker. It's tradition to kind of just let loose and get into the event slowly. So I would love for everybody here, drop in the chat if you have a smartphone. And I would love to know even further, what kind of smartphone? Smartphone means is your phone or mobile device capable of taking images, recording video, flip phones, I don't mind it, Samsungs, no hate to Androids here. I would just like to hear it all. Let me know what sort of cell phone do you have? Okay, iPhone game is strong. I will say that. Okay. I see a lot of iPhones. All right. Android, no disrespect. Glad you're here. Blue bubbles, no. Okay, I see Motorola. All right. Okay. So now I'd like to know, while you're putting that in the chat, at what age did you first get your cell phone? I know cell phones are pretty new, but it's interesting to know how far, how long we've had them. I see some 10s, 7 years old. Wow, you've been in the game strong. Okay, 28. That's Professor Harner, everyone. He's also another advisor of ours in the journalism minor, but it's so interesting to hear. I also got mine in the 10th grade. So that's like what, 14, 15? Okay. So now, knowing that we have smartphones and we've had them for a while, I'd like to know also, do you keep in track of your screen time, how long you're on your phone? Is that something you ponder or keep mind of? I'd also like to know, if so, see, I see it already, 24/7, what apps are you on the most? Again, we don't judge, it's a safe place. YouTube, Instagram, okay. TikTok, I was waiting for it. Twitter, okay. So again, this is just to go back to the fact that we're all around the same age. We're all on our phones. For the most part, a lot of us do have cell phones. And we're on it a lot. So this event is gonna work great because that's exactly where we're starting with. All right, so to get into the event a little bit more, these are just some key objectives that I'd like for everybody to keep mind of moving forward to the event, and just some things that we hope you can take away from the event. Most importantly, being aware of the various roles of a journalist. I think it's a really heavy misconception that a journalist is just a writer or a reporter. Great example, going on with theme. I mean, we all know Peter Parker, and he's a photojournalist. So, the whole superhero world at one point, Lois Lane, we grew up with Clark Kent, like all these characters, they're journalists, believe it or not. And that's kind of what inspired our theme for today. Knowing your power as a journalist. It's so cool that we're all similarly in the same age. And that goes on to the next point. Knowing the tools of a journalist. So along with our icebreaker and more into, we're going to get into the event. We really hope that you get to hone that power that you have as a student, as someone that's aware of the digital world, and just take away that you are very much a journalist for being here today. All right. This is Professor Cap's moment to shine.
Oh gosh, no pressure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. So I want to start by asking if anyone recognizes this woman, if you can name her. There's a picture of a woman on the screen, and I'm asking if anyone recognizes her. I guess I would then ask if you know the name George Floyd, if that's a name you recognize. Seeing a lot of activity in the chat about George Floyd. So we don't know who this woman is, but we know who George Floyd is. Chances are we would not know about George Floyd if it weren't for this woman. This is not Breonna Taylor. She's 18 years old. And yes, Naomi, her name is Darnella Frazier. On May 25th, 2020, when she was 17 years old, she swiped from the lock screen of her iPhone 11 and recorded George Floyd being murdered by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. She held her phone steady as she could, and she kept recording for 10 minutes and 9 seconds because, as she later said, quote, "I knew if I didn't, no one would believe me." The next day, she opened the Facebook app on that same phone, tapped the video, and uploaded it, and she changed history. So earlier this year, about a year after she recorded that video, the Pulitzer Prize Committee awarded a special citation to Darnella, who again, today is 18 years old. The committee credited Darnella with doing something courageous and important. They said that she received the citation for, quote, "courageously recording the murder of George Floyd, a video that spurred protests against police brutality around the world, highlighting the crucial role of citizens in journalists' quest for truth and justice." One journalist tweeted after the announcement from the Pulitzer Committee that Darnella recorded, quote, "one of the most important civil rights documents in a generation." And just, if you're not familiar, Pulitzers are the highest honor for journalism in the United States. So we're going to watch a brief video that tells us a little bit more about Darnella and what she did.
I heard George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe, please get off of me. I can't breathe." He cried for his mom. He was in pain. It seemed like he knew. It seemed like he knew it was over for him. He was terrified. He was suffering. This was a cry for help.
Last thing before we go tonight, remember that from the Chauvin trial? That was the voice of Darnella Frazier. On the afternoon of May 25th, 2020, she was taking her 9-year-old cousin to buy snacks at an unremarkable corner store in Minneapolis called Cup Foods. Quite literally the definition of minding her own business, when she made a quick decision that would change the course of history. She took out her phone. She started recording what became the murder of a man in the street in broad daylight under the knee of a police officer. She chronicled the departure of life from the body of the man we now know as George Floyd. Today, Darnella Frazier was recognized with a special citation from the board that awards the Pulitzer Prize. As Reuters reported it today, quote, "The citation at the 2021 Pulitzer Prize ceremony is a rare instance of the board recognizing the journalistic achievement of someone with no professional experience in the field, a striking distinction in the genre sometimes known as citizen journalism." Frazier, 18, was recognized for recording, quote, "a transformative video that jolted viewers and spurred protests against police brutality around the world." And no, it is not hyperbole to say that Darnella Frazier's decision in that moment changed the world. People marched around the world. George Floyd's name has been spoken in remembrance in the Oval Office. It's the title of a proposed act of Congress. Indeed, what Darnella Frazier did in that moment was the definition of electronic journalism. As ugly and stomach-turning as the video is to watch, the question remains, would we be saying the name George Floyd were it not for the bravery and presence of mind of a young woman named Darnella Frazier? And so
that fills in a little bit more about Darnella's story. And for years, our mobile devices, the things we all just said we have, they've been used to capture footage of injustice. And as technology gets better, the devices themselves have gotten better, and the sharing has gotten easier because of our social media networks. We don't need a major network or newspaper to share that information any longer. This timeline shows examples of what has been called citizen journalism. You heard it referenced in that video. Ordinary people who bear witness to something extraordinary and have the presence of mind to record and share it. These are extreme examples, and it would be hard to say what any of us would do in a moment like what Darnella faced. You can even think about it for yourself. What would you do in that moment? But the truth is that we all witness things that impact other people. And now we have the power to capture and share those moments in ways that can advance justice on a large scale, like what happened with George Floyd, or on a smaller scale. So we're here to talk about how to handle those moments by awakening the journalist that already exists in all of us. And we want to dedicate this session to Darnella Frazier and to the memory of George Floyd. So this is really what we want to offer you. This is what we call our J-Pass. And as we said in the flyer, we want you to leave here with your own J-Pass. And we start with J. J is for justice. J is for journalism. Journalism takes many forms. It's very complex to use one word to describe all the things that journalism is. As you know, in recent years, it's come under fire, accused of bias, manipulation, even being fake. But the idea of journalism, and the reason a lot of us get into this field, when journalism is done responsibly, is to pursue and convey truth for the sake of justice. We see our duty as helping a community know itself, exposing wrongdoing through watchdog journalism, amplifying marginalized voices, delivering important information. Certainly the COVID epidemic is an example of that, helping people make decisions, who to elect, what to do with your day, and make sense of your world. So we know we're only human. Journalists know this too. We know we're not inherently objective. We don't have any special superpower in that respect. So we work on a process of verification to discern and deliver facts to you. Our duty is to truth, and it's to you. And we hope that it helps people. We hope it helps you. There's one old saying about journalism. It quote, comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable. I always keep that in mind in my work. So it's a lot of responsibility, and trained journalists accept it as their responsibility. But now that we all have these little printing presses in our pockets, and a lot of you say you do now, you have the ability to capture and share. You got to take that power seriously. So you have the tools of a journalist. Now, how do you use them in a way that's thoughtful and responsible? And the Sentinel editors are going to take you through those ways with our JPass.
So prepare is to activate your senses and become a committed observer. So there are two aspects of preparation. So there's situational awareness, and then there's also preparing for an interview. So situational awareness, you can think about your five senses. So your taste, touch, smell, sight, your hearing. And so all those different senses, you're training your intuition to being aware of the things happening around you. The touch is if you're against a cold wall, if the air is humid, the things that you're feeling. Your sight, there's a car passing by, there's a bike, there's a ball. Your hearing, your touch, even your taste. Like if you're eating something, if it tastes really good, if it tastes not so good, because there's different types of journalism, including food journalism. So there's different types of things that we're training our intuition into being aware of the situations around us, so that when something happens, we are aware of it ahead of time, and we can capture that moment, and we're noticing all those small details that make up the moment. So afterwards, we can properly document it, either with video footage, with photography, and with our memory as well. Then there's also preparing for an interview. So preparing for an interview would be thinking about the person that you're talking to, what type of things they're involved with what they're interested in, and how you can connect to them so to get the most information out of the interview. But specifically with this, an everyday type of thing is being aware of your surroundings. And also, as New Yorkers, we're told to stay in your bubble, don't think of people around you. But that's the opposite of what journalism is you're actually supposed to make the world your bubble. Everything around you is supposed to be in your bubble of sight. You're meant to see everything, which can be overwhelming. So slowly train yourself to focus into one thing. So maybe you can start off with being like, okay, today I'm just going to start learning how to focus on my my sight. I'm just going to notice the cabs passing past me. I'm going to notice the colors of the car. I'm going to notice the people, if there are people behind me, if there are people in front of me. Are they little children? Are they older? You can notice the small details, then add on to your sight. Oh, I hear a siren. Oh, I hear a ball bouncing past me. Oh, I hear a kid crying. Oh, I hear someone screaming. So start noticing all these different things. And then touch as well. Like if you're biking, the feel of this. So all these things will soon become natural for you to realize these things. And it won't be you won't be racking your brain to try and remember things.
So act, press record, take notes, and talk to people. So keeping Darnella Frazier in mind, she said that if she didn't record what happened to George Floyd, no one would have believed her. And that's true. And that is why you need to act. And so you can make sure that people will believe you. So when you're acting, you should, after you have activated your senses, you can do so by taking notes, recording what you are seeing, observing who might be around, who you can interview for their opinion, which you can use for your story. And of course, when you're developing your story, you should always follow wherever the story may take you. And when you're doing that, you should always incorporate the facts, and that is the most important thing. So speaking about facts, seeking truth. So again, after you have activated your senses and you have now acted, now your next goal is to start seeking the truth. When you are seeking the truth, the number one thing you must do is report that truth. When you seek the truth, try to do so without having, with the goal in mind of being as accurate as possible. To be accurate, the main goals you should have is to do additional research. Make sure whoever you're interviewing has concrete information on what you are writing your story about. And you have the responsibility to inform, to provide the voiceless with the voice, and to hold people accountable. And keep in mind that you have rights as a journalist, which means that, for example, like Darnella Frazier, when she was recording George Floyd, a police officer could not have told her to stop recording because she had the right to record what was happening. And you must keep that in mind whenever you are acting on your senses, because you do have the right to record and report stories. And lastly, I really want everyone to remember to focus on being as truthful and accurate as possible, and do not add and do not deceive.
Well said. Thank you, everyone. And the last S stands for stay safe. So don't endanger yourself or others. You can always look towards trained journalists, like the Sentinel editors here. So what that entails is, yes, we are prepared, we're acting, we're seeking the truth, we're totally embodying what it means to be a journalist. But to go back to Fraser's story, she posted that video the following day after she was in the comfort of her home. I mean, just to think about the traumatizing event that she had faced and was there to record, I'm sure not just her posting it the following day for her safety, it was definitely like a mental step she may have taken. I think, safety is so important. We live in New York. There's so much we can chronicle. There's so much that we can capture, but that's to keep in mind that if you're recording something and incoming traffic is coming along or, again, being aware of your senses, a lot can happen in a moment. And, although you have the drive to make sure you get it on film, please make sure that you're in a safe environment to do that. I like to think of the metaphor of, if a plane is coming down, you're meant to put on your own mask to then help another. And that's the perfect way of looking at a story, an article, a video, an audio bite, any sort of exposing factor. You definitely want to make sure that you're in the clear, that you're safe, before taking that step and using that power that is given to you. It's so important that and it's just safe to do in the comfort of your own home and where you're able to. So yeah, please do keep in mind of being safe as a journalist. So that was our JPass, and we would love for any of you interested in taking your own JPass. In the chat, Professor Cap will drop a link to a Google form that you can fill out, and we will send you a laminated business card-esque sort of thing that you can fit in your pocket. It includes each letter, just so that you're reminded that when you do go out, you can take out that card and know that you have the right to be in that moment and capture it. If not, you can also just download the PDF version. I'm not gonna lie, all of us editors, we would love our own copy too, so catch us filling that as well. But we do definitely want you all to get to leave the event knowing that you can embody JPASS, and remember it down the road. Even if you see something, this is your chance to say something. So yeah, do fill that out or download from the chat. And now this is, the moment that we've all kind of been waiting for. We'd love to hear any sort of questions. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can get a more personalized experience and hear from folks. But if you have any questions, comments, we would love to hear, whether this is the first time you've heard of Darnella. Her story is still so relevant and it's something that we should still continue to talk about. So if you have any questions, please drop in the chat, or you may raise your hand and we'll call on you and get a conversation going. I've gotten a private message of a question. How can I be a journalist if I'm not good at writing? Any of the editors want to take on that question?
Yeah, so I can take on that. So there are several aspects to journalism that you might like. The non-traditional aspects is photojournalism. So you're telling a story through photos or through videos and different things like that. So that's definitely something that you can get into. Also, we have amazing Professor Capeloto here and Professor Herner, who are both professors for journalist classes. So they are your tools and resources. So sign up for their classes. We also have a journalism minor at John Jay that you may not know about. So you don't have to even be minoring in it, but you can choose to minor if you would like to, and that can definitely help you learn. There's also different ways to, you don't necessarily always have to be a writer in order to get your story out there. Part of it is what I said before, being aware of situational awareness. So if you notice something that's happening, you can have a nice story and like an idea for a story, and you can share that with a friend who would like to write it, who's better at writing, or you can pitch it to the Sentinel and see if someone can write that for you. One of the writers can write that for you. So there's many different ways that you can get your story and your thoughts and your opinions and what you've noticed out there.
Can I follow up with that question and ask you, since you talked about pitching, what do you mean by pitching to the Sentinel? What does that mean?
I'm just going to call out James to answer that because he's our go-to when it comes to stories and pitches. Go for it, James.
So yeah, if you have a story that you have in mind, you can always reach out to us on the John Jay Sentinel email account and basically tell us about your story. And so basically a pitch can just consist of what angle you might think about taking in a particular topic that you might want to write about. And then we can get back to you on whether we think that it's, it follows if we think we might want to see your draft for the story. Oh yes, and that is the John Jay email account that I just put in the chat. So you can just reach us on that email and we will definitely get back to you.
Great question. Thank you, Tamar. I'm also gonna even pitch in my own question because I've always thought about this. What does a full-time journalist look like? I think we all just, again, I think it's a very common image to think of a reporter or someone on TV that's just reading from a broadcast, right? But if that's not the job, what does a full-time journalist look like? Anybody want to take on that question?
I can speak to it a little bit. Maybe Professor Harner also wants to chime in. He's the co-coordinator of the minor. It looks very different from what it used to look like. You might have heard earlier that I graduated from journalism school in 2000, which is a while ago now. And at the time, I was interviewing with metropolitan newspapers. I got my first job at a newspaper in LA, and then I went on to the Detroit Free Press. We, as advisors and professors, we don't really guide students toward that because that job market has really shrunk. As you might know, newspapers are suffering. The business model that kept them afloat for so long really is no longer viable. So it looks different now, but in a way, there's something lost there. We've lost some of the watchdogging that happens at a city or town level. But at the same time, all of this amazing journalism has cropped up because of the tools that we've all talked about having in our own pockets. People now have access to an audience in a way they never did. So what we've seen come up is a lot of what we call niche publications, hyper-local publications, a lot of them existing online. And so we talk with students about developing all their skills, multimedia, right? Writing, visual, video still. We talk about all of that in our program. And we try to work with them about finding their place in this much bigger and more multidimensional media world that exists today, which to me is really exciting to see. I feel like there are voices we're hearing that we would not have heard otherwise, if not for our media world. And I was asked privately to expand on watchdogging. So this idea, not to be confused with the bloodhound, that is our mascot. A watchdog is traditionally it refers to investigative journalism, meaning that your role is to keep the people in power in check. You're going to meetings. So even at our campus, you could attend a student council meeting. That is like a microcosm of, a city council or a town council. You would go to meetings, keep an eye on the decisions being made, especially as they relate to money. And you are reporting that information to an audience. Investigative journalists usually dig a little deeper than just what's on the surface, right? Beyond what's just said at the meetings. They look for documents, they have sources, they develop sources who tell them information that isn't always shared publicly. And their job is really to be a watchdog, to be a watch for people in power, and then report to an audience, especially if there are any abuses of power. We know in our history that a lot of times when we've learned about injustice and abuse of power, it's because of watchdog journalism.
And I'm just going to add on, Professor Cap brought up opening up different voices, because when we were planning this event, I mentioned I get my news from the New York Times. I don't know if people know Philip DeFranco on YouTube. If you do, drop in the chat. I'd love to hear where else do you get your news from. I know BuzzFeed is big. There's, Snapchat news. There's so many different avenues that have been opened up because of this digital space. Okay, see, I I see how people have, see Twitter. I know there's drama channels on YouTube. Like that's still news and that's still breaking a story, even if it is Hollywood or if it's a movie review or like Sivia mentioned, food journalism, the food world and critics and like even like a Yelp review, I feel like is journalistic in its own way. Tamar, I'd love for you to take on part-time journalism since Professor Cap brought up, yes, because you did mention you do write as well. So we've all loved to hear about your experience there.
Yeah, of course. So I've always written, and if I could go back in time, I would absolutely choose journalism as a major, but I chose criminal justice, something I'm passionate about. And so went on to get my graduate degree in criminal justice as well. And so I feel like as of recent, it's really been dawning on me that, my writing has always been a thing for me. And so I feel very passionate about things like George Floyd. I feel very passionate about Khalif Browder and talking about his story. And so just thinking about, the connection of trauma and all the things that individuals experience, I said, you know what, I want to write on justice issues. And so I did have to kind of teach myself how to pitch. And so luckily my first pitch I sent to the Huffington Post got picked up like within the next day. And that just opened up a world for me. So you will get paid based upon the amount of words that you're writing. And so sometimes publications will tell you only 1,000 words or, over this amount of words. They won't put a cap on it. Most of them are cheap. And so I hear what Professor Cap is saying about it changing. So it might just be 50 cents a word or 25 cents a word. But I definitely encourage everyone in the room who's interested in writing or journalism, and maybe that's not something that you want to do full time, to learn how to pitch a story and explain why it's important or why you think you should be the one that's writing it. And honestly, if you have nothing to show that publication in regards to your past writing, I encourage everyone to go on Medium and start your own Medium page and start writing and start building up your writing. And that can be something that you can share for sure.
And can I just add one thing? Because I can never help saying this. This is my gospel is even if you don't want to be a full-time journalist, even if that's not the career you want, these skills and the things we've talked about with JPass, all of it, they're so important no matter what job or career you want to pursue. Being able to find information and clarify and verify and condense information and deliver it in a way that is clear to a general audience. These are superpowers. These are things that will make you stand out in any job that you have. And I tell students that all the time, like, you don't want to, you're not coming to me because you want to work at a newspaper. That's fine. There aren't a lot of those jobs right now anyway. Let's talk about what you do want to do and how these skills will help you in that job.
Yeah, and I think a good summary of what that is critical thinking. Journalism is critical thinking, where you're thinking about the world around you, the things that are happening. You're not just taking things face value, you're really thinking into it deeper, the different interactions. There also was a question in the chat, is how do journalists always find news to cover, and how do journalists cover those events? The first, they intertwine. So part of being aware of those situations, if you're constantly aware of the world around you, these things will just be coming at you. You're like, this is weird. This is something, this is cool. Some things that you're investigating, you're like, this is off. Some things you're like, oh, this is cool. This building is opening. There's history behind it. There's this new food place. There's this, there's that. So some are like cool new things happening, and some are you're investigating. So when you're aware of the things around you, these stories are constantly happening because life is evolving and there's constantly new things happening. So if you're in tune to these things happening in the world, then you'll always have stories. And how are you the first to cover a recent event? Be in tune, because if you're in tune with what's going on, you're the first person. If you also train yourself to think critically, and you have a unique twist on how you think of the world, people won't necessarily think the way you think. So you'll have that first story idea because people might not necessarily be thinking the way you're thinking. So being aware and thinking and getting those, yeah.
Well said, Sylvia. So many points were made there. I'm going to read something from the chat. Carla Sainz said, I met a journalist at Wall Street Journal a few years ago, and she mentioned that you don't need to go to journalism school in order to be a journalist. Do you believe this is accurate? Do you disagree? The amount of conversations I've had with Professor Cap and Harner and James and our team about this, because as someone trying to get into the field, I think there's a split view on going to J school, and I'm just going to call Professor Cap to take on that question.
Oh, nice way to throw it to me. That was well done. So yes, I will tell you, I went to journalism school and I spent the majority of the time there wondering what the heck I was doing there. Like, is this worth it? Is this worth being in debt for years? Why am I here? Couldn't I just go out and get a job? So I did think that at the time. Later on, I also thought, okay, that was actually very helpful to me because I did learn a lot. And I'll just be honest, if you go to a journalism school, you also you meet people, you know, I'm not much of a networker, but I just met people and I was exposed to people and they were exposed to me in a way that opened doors. Like I met the recruiter for the Detroit Free Press at my journalism school and got an internship there. And then I worked really hard to make sure that they wanted to keep me after my internship ended. So every little thing was a stepping stone. So looking back, journalism school was helpful. In terms of the skills, I also think journalism school is helpful, but I don't think it's for everyone. And I think that you really, it's kind of your own path. I think you could absolutely forge a career without going to journalism school, especially if it means taking on a lot of debt. That is, I know, a real consideration. This happens to be a field where it's not like, you know, law or medicine where you need to take a test or, you know, get a certain degree and then you're official. You don't need that in journalism. So you certainly can do it without J school. And if anyone wants to talk to me more about the experience, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat.
I'm also just going to let Professor Harner take on this question because he's here. He's one of our advisors. Go ahead, Professor Harner.
Oh, can't see me, but I'm just making the thumbs up when Professor Capeloto was talking. The problem with J school now is it's very much the debt, and our own program is a pretty good deal, but it's a lot of our students get financial aid and TAP and stuff for undergrad, and they're not familiar with the fact that most master's programs are not funded, and there's not a lot of scholarship, be it merit-based or need-based. So typically the way that students pay for journalism master's degrees and other non-academic master's degrees is through incurring vast sums of debt, which we don't recommend typically. I would tell you, if you want to be a journalist and you're still an undergrad, you should just, someone mentioned early on that they didn't like to write. Well, the first thing you should do is you should make peace with writing, and you should work at your writing, and then you should find venues to publish. The John Jay Sentinel is a good venue. Someone mentioned Medium, that's another good venue. Okay, you can do that for free as an undergraduate. You can write for free, and you can get help from your professors, and you can read. You can read widely. You can read newspapers and magazines and blogs and things besides Twitter and Facebook. Okay, so the way that you learn to write is by reading, by trying to write, and then you can kind of see where you are. And if you need clips, you need a portfolio, you don't feel ready for prime time, you can think about maybe going to J school. But I don't recommend that any student go into debt for any pre-professional master's program, given the way the world and the economy is right now. Myself personally, I ended up doing a PhD in literature because I went into debt for undergrad school and I couldn't find a journalism program to fund me. So I did a PhD for free. And for me, it was an economic decision. I just didn't want to go into debt anymore. So that was decades ago. But you really need to, the reason I bring this up, I got something on email where Georgetown wanted me to promote their program to our undergraduates. They have a new master's program, and I want to write back before I promote their program and ask about the actual statistics regarding the funding, because I just don't like the idea of students who have gone through our school, either debt free or with marginal debt, going into debt and then not seeing a return on that investment. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Professor Harner, and thank you,
I
Professor.
was just going to keep talking, right, Fatima?
No worries. You were great.
No, mute me.
Okay, I got you. 1 second. All right. With that being said, there are so many sides to J School. And again, if you have any further questions about whether you want to take that step into journalism, please do keep in mind Professor Cap dropped her email, and I'm sure Professor Harner will too as well in the chat. We're going to just close up our presentation momentarily. Just give me a moment. Okay. So thank you all for the questions. I think there's a lot relating to, logistics. It's a lot to take in, writing, taking photos, videos, but regardless, all questions are valid, and thank you for sending them our way. Obviously, we have to plug the Sentinel since we're here. So that's to say, thank you all for being here. And if we have said enough about writing and photography and storytelling to any capacity, that means that this is your sign to either write for the Sentinel or contribute to your most local journalism platform that is your college newspaper. As editor-in-chief, I think it's so rewarding not just to say I wrote something, but besides bragging about it, it's so rewarding to know that I wrote and contributed to an opinion or a way of thinking for other people to read and to also formulate their own ideas. I think a writer that can, take a story, make their own flip of it, and then get someone else to write something completely different is what journalism is. And that's what has kept this field going. So follow us on Instagram. We also have a Twitter. We made a LinkedIn. We even have a YouTube page because we're really trying to expand video making, storytelling, photography. And if you would like to contribute in any form, our email is there. You will also be getting an email after the event with everything mentioned. So don't worry, we've got your back, but do look into the Sentinel. We're here to help. And that's to say, again, if the confidence about writing isn't there, the editors are here to help you out in any level, whether you, not even in the minor, we're here to help you and make sure you get something out on the site. Yeah. And that's to say, thank you all for joining us. It has been so rewarding to see so many people come out. I'm going to stop sharing because that was our event. But if there's any further questions or concerns, yeah, thank you all for your time.
Can I ask real quick before we end, and you can just type me or put a reaction, who here in the room is interested in writing or just being a journalist in the future, whether that's part-time, full-time. If you could just drop it in the chat and just say me, like who's interested in doing some writing. We definitely want you to connect with everyone here in the room. I'm seeing a lot of me's. That is amazing. That is awesome. You guys have resources here at John Jay, right? So definitely connect with Fatima, connect with Professor Cap. Think about writing for the Sentinel, right? This is your time to really practice. I spoke with them a little bit earlier about continuing events centered around writing, especially for justice issues. And I think, with them sharing the video about Darnella's story, and, that is the whole point, right? We're here at John Jay, and yeah, you may not be majoring in journalism. Hopefully you'll think about minoring, right? And just some sort of media or just journalism, period. Really take this all in. And so definitely connect with every single person that's here, that's on the Sentinel, right? And maybe think about joining or getting a position as an editor. Maybe you don't know what that is. Ask them. Maybe you need help with your writing, right? And so we have our writing center. We have, again, Fatima in the room, Professor Cap, all these individuals that you're connected to here. So take advantage of it. And hopefully that's why you all came to today's event, was to get a little bit more information about how you can kind of, create this for yourself and just share your writing and share your thoughts. So again, if there's any other questions, we do have a couple more minutes, but if not, we just thank you, Fatima, Sivia, Professor Cap, James, Nina. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Thank you, everyone, for engaging. Everyone who's here, thank you for engaging. And thank you again for coming through to our final Justice Talk, to Justice Walk. I will be sharing every single resource that was shared here in our chat. I will absolutely be sharing an email. I will email it to you. I'll email their Instagram information, their YouTube page. We just want to get you connected. So I'll make sure that that email has every single thing there. Go ahead, take it away, Sivia.
Yeah, just so one thing, when you're leaving here, kind of like a task for you. So wherever you are, when you leave your house, if you're in your house or your apartment, you're walking down the street, just engage your senses, okay? Take one of those senses. It doesn't have to be all, that can be overwhelming. Take one of your senses and focus on that sense. And every day, try to add more to your senses. So this is a practical tool of what you can take out of this, okay? So like, is it cold today? Is it hot today? What is the energy around you? Are people really upset? Are they busy? Are they walking fast? So notice those things. That is a task that can help you.
Love it. Well said.
Yes. Any last words, Professor Cap or Fatima or anyone on the team?
I just want to say thank you for being here. And I really appreciated being able to talk about Darnella.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, shout out to my team. We work so hard. Shout out to Professor Cap, Tamar, Sass. Thank you to Genesis was here, Claudia. I have to say, I'm being completely honest. I did not know of Darnella's story before this event, and preparing and just like researching, really just, I'm being completely honest. I know I'm a student journalist. I want to do this full time, but if I was in that moment, in that trauma, I would not be able to have filmed that for 10 minutes. I know my mom would have been like, where are you? Get home, right? So if I can end off with anything, of course, be safe, but when there's something worth exposing, when there's something worth the bigger picture, pressing record, pulling out voice memos. I mean, we have so many tools to us, right? I see it all the time. Students, we face things with professors and people and so many things. Like you can literally live your own truth and protect yourself and others with just by capturing a moment, and that's all it takes. So please use those tools, and I hope we ignited something for you to remember that. Download the JPass PDF, remember your rights, know who you're meant to be, and that's a journalist in all of us. So if any other editor or anybody else here would like to say something, please do. I'm not gonna hold anybody back.
I would just say thanks everyone for coming. And I also want to mention that as you're activating your senses and observing, remember that the one thing that's unique about all of us is we all go to the same school. And some of us probably go to campus, right? Maybe you can see something that happens on campus, and it can be something that is newsworthy. And if you follow the JPass method, then you might have a story. And then boom, you can just send it to you can pitch it to the Sentinel site, the Sentinel email. And then next thing you know, you can be published in the Sentinel. And then there you go, that you're already a journalist. So again, just follow these steps. And even when you're just, going to class, every day at John Jay, I mean, boom, you can just activate the JPass, and next thing you know, you're a journalist. So I think you guys should keep that in mind after this event. So.
Thank you so much again. And thank you everyone for coming to our final Justice Talk. You're a journalist and you didn't even know it. And I really hope you all take every single bit of piece of advice and you go off into the world and you just write, okay? And so once again, thank you for coming through. Please keep an eye out on your email because I'll drop all of this information. Fill out the form for the JPass, follow the Sentinel on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of the above. And absolutely, yes, thank you for dropping once again all of those links. And think about digital media and journalism as a minor. So that's how we're gonna leave you off to go out into the world and just be change makers, right? Be advocates for justice, but by using your pen. So thank you once again for coming out. Of course, I'll be the last one on here, and I welcome the team to kind of stay on too as everyone exits, just in case a student has a question on their way out. But thank you so much. Go ahead and give our presenters a virtual round of applause. We thank you once again for presenting and sharing all of your knowledge with us. Have an amazing rest of your weekend. I'm sorry, week. It's only Tuesday. Have an amazing rest of your week.